Hi, my name is Oystein Solberg. We're at the Institute for Culinary Arts. We're here with Janet Marr. How are you today?
Good, thanks.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's pretty. This is raining outside, and
Yeah, well,
but we're inside.
that's a good part.
Yeah, right. So, what do we do on rainy days? Like, what do you got planned here?
Make something that makes you feel warm and cozy,
Oh.
like bread.
Oh, I was
in-
gonna
in-
say.
you
I
know.
was gonna say like banana milkshakes.
Well, that's cold and refreshing, but
Oh.
you
yeah,
want
yeah.
something that's gonna make your whole house smells good, right?
I like it. All right. So you got some flour and water
Yeah,
and stuff.
we're gonna make something called focaccia.
All right. Foccacia.
So focaccia is interesting because it could be a meal to itself,
All right.
or it could be, a piece of bread to eat with something else, like
Yeah.
good for dipping,
Oh,
eating
yeah.
with soup or
Yeah.
something like that. So we're gonna try. And the reason I picked this is it's sort of different from just regular bread making. Focaccia is, basically a very soft, wet dough.
Yeah.
And if it's depending where you are, some of the dough can have lots of what we call eyes or
Like
bubbles
bubble-ups,
inside
yeah.
the dough. So you want to start? So basically we have flour, water. One new thing that a lot of focaccia have is liquid oil that you
Yeah.
add in at the end of the dough to
Yeah.
make it more supple and rich.
Yeah.
So this dough start off just like any bread dough. You need flour, of course, and because it's bread, we're gonna use bread dough, flour,
bread flour,
so high gluten,
Yeah.
lots of protein. So we're gonna add, just for richness, we're gonna add some sugar in there. Oh, there's a little.
And the
little
sugar will
bit.
help the yeast be more effective as
Right,
well. Like it kind of
yeast
feeds
more
the
active.
yeast.
So we're gonna stir it around. Just make
You
sure.
stir so nicely.
Yeah, I try to be gentle.
Try to.
Yeah, either that or I manhandle it. And then you throw some yeast in. And then I always hold back the salt because salt in bread making chemistry has salt inhibits yeast activity. So you don't want
If you
to.
get too much, it can completely kill it off.
Right,
and,
right.
and-
So you want to make sure the yeast are, protected by other ingredients before you throw it in.
yeah.
Then we're gonna, mix it by hand or
Or
in
by the mixer.
Yeah, so we're gonna do it by the mixer.
Might as well.
Because it's a little wetter, so it's more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So we're gonna put in, let it mix a little bit to just make sure everything is well dispersed.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna throw the salt in. Okay. Good. Sprinkle it in and let
Sprinkle,
it get
sprinkle.
in. So with liquid, we have water
Yeah.
and then oil.
Okay.
So we're going to add water first to
Okay.
sort of help develop the gluten.
Yeah.
Fat,
And the water is just like a good warm room temp.
right, room temperature. It could be cold. It's just that if it's cold, it takes longer.
Yeah. But if it's too hot, it can completely kill
Right.
the
It
yeast.
should be
and-
like no warmer than body temperature.
Yeah.
That's ideal. So we're going to put in the water first and let
looks
it
so cozy.
incorporate until it makes a dough.
Yeah.
Gathers up around. So you can help it along. I usually help it along by using the hook to stir it to make sure it's wet.
Yeah.
Everything is incorporated, or you can just do it like that, but it's going to take a little while to get all the
kinda
flour
get worked in.
incorporated.
So when making this, you mentioned that you use bread flour. Like, could you use all-purpose flour for this as well, or would it just not get the same texture?
It depends on the texture that you want.
Okay.
If you want a slightly chewy texture, you want to use bread flour.
Yeah.
But there are many recipes that you can find that use all-purpose flour.
Yeah.
All-purpose flour has lower gluten-forming potential, less protein.
Yeah.
So it makes a softer
Okay.
focaccia.
Yeah.
Some people like the soft focaccia, like I'm one of them.
Yeah.
So that's why I use all-purpose flour.
Yeah.
But some people like a little more stretchy.
Okay.
Then you can use bread flour.
Yeah.
But if you use the same recipe and change different kind of flour, that may mean that you may have to add a little more flour or a
Yeah.
little more water
Okay.
to adjust. Okay.
Let's truck it along. You want to try and scrape the
Yeah.
scrape the bottom a little bit?
I'm impatient. I always do.
Yeah, because like it's just kind of like stirring
Stirring.
the top.
It's not very efficient. So.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm not very efficient. I'm pretty slow. Yeah, so just kind of help it out a little bit so it kind of comes together faster.
Yeah. So this is also a time when you're looking and say, is it fighting me? Is it very firm? Maybe I need to add some more water, or
Yeah.
or it's too sloopy, and then so I need to add a little more flour.
It's looking pretty happy in here.
Let's see.
Like I
I
said-
always like to feel my dough. Yep, it's soft and it feels wet where it's all gathered. So I'm
It's
happy.
a pretty happy spot.
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to add more water right now. So let's get it back on.
Put it back on the thing-a-ling.
And you want to mix it at moderate speed. Like if you have a stand mixer, so you have marking from 2 to 8, you want to do 4 or 6, or medium speed, if that's all you have, high or low or medium.
So that's 4. So yeah, that's moving it around pretty good.
Yeah. There's no harm in going slower, it just takes you longer. to
Yeah.
get there.
Because like you couldn't knead it by hand as well.
Yes,
It would
definitely.
just take a minute.
I don't use with this dough because it could be very sticky
Yeah.
when it's done. So I try not to do it from the beginning, but
Because at this stage, like it looks like a fairly traditional dough.
Right.
But then we got
All
a
that.
good chunk of oil to add in there as well. So yeah. Yeah, but right now it looks like a regular bread dough.
right, it's gathering around, it cleans
Yeah.
the sides, so it
Yeah,
looks pretty good.
it looks beautiful.
So you don't want to keep mixing for a long time before you add the oil, because then the dough will get too tight,
Okay.
and then the oil won't
And
get
it's just
in.
going to be spinning around in there and
Right.
gets funky.
So because of that, I'm going to start adding it in there. You can toss it all in at once. Hear that slapping? So
Yeah.
that's when you need to slow it down so you're not getting a facial oil.
Yeah.
So what I put in is basically, not extra virgin, but olive oil.
Yeah. But like a high quality olive oil.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, like it smells delicious by now.
And depending on what
Smell.
you want to do, like if I want my dough to be flavored, this is when I put some
Yeah.
flavoring in,
It's
like
like
salt and pepper.
Because like you could use a flavored oil too if you wanted
Yes.
to kind of get it like fully incorporated in. Yeah, because like focaccia, you see it a lot of time with like sun-dried tomatoes or olives or herbs or whatever. Like it's so like what's kind of like the history behind focaccia? Like I don't really know. Like I know it's Italian, and that's about it.
Well, it is Italian. Focaccia is basically a soft, slightly crunchy, soft, big hole,
Yeah.
soft dough with lots of holes, and then you can then usually has a topping.
Yeah.
The topping could be anything.
Yeah.
I often do sauté onion and mushroom,
Oh.
or as my friend said, the kitchen sink is what you like.
Yeah.
So I throw everything in. But
Yeah.
typically, you can also do sun-dried tomato or roasted pepper
Yeah.
or onion, or some people just like, I like it plain, just put some fresh, dry herbs on top with some cheese on top.
Yeah.
So it's all up to you.
Because like you said, like it can either be its own meal or it can be like a side thing to dip in a soup or go to salad or something like
Yeah.
that.
So if you want it as a side dish for dipping, then you probably don't want to put all those things on top.
Yeah. Like anchovies on there and stuff.
I like garlic anchovy pizza, so
Yeah. It's delicious.
preaching to the choir or whatever.
Ah.
So how's it going there?
Oh, it's starting to work the oil in. One of my favorite things to have with focaccia is just like a nice and garlicky like aioli. So like aioli is kind of like it's like a very loose mayonnaise, but it's not really a condiment. It's more like a sauce, but it's very like nice and garlicky. Like it's good. Like you just like dip the bread in it and just sit there and eat. Like you can sit there for like hours and like I love bread. Like I'm a breadaholic. But it's good
Well-
because like it's just got a different flavor than like a sourdough and stuff like that. Like it's just I don't know. Like it's hard to describe. Like it's just makes me warm and happy inside.
Well, if we have time, you should show us. I like to know.
Yeah. Oh, it's deliciousness. right, so should we try and work in this oil by hand?
Yeah,
See if
you
we get it
or
in there?
you can increase the speed a little bit.
Just let it boogie in there. Yeah, like it's scooting along a little bit. Oh, that just looks delicious. Because the oil is kind of fighting back a little bit, right? Because like it doesn't want to mix with the water, so like it's kind of needs the flour's help to be able to stay in there. But it's looking delicious.
Also, some machines are more efficient than others, so
yeah. So this dough, you could, instead of using a dough hook, could you just use like a paddle for it instead?
You can have the paddle in there to start off.
Yeah.
The other way you can do it is, it's better to do the oil later because you want the gluten to develop the oil, so
will the oil kind of inhibit the gluten development? Okay.
But if it's something that you want to do, you can mix the oil and the water together.
Heard.
So that's maybe more easy for some people.
Yeah, and it's starting to come together nicely though. It's looking pretty good.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing with bread making, so you gotta be patient.
Yeah.
So
I'm patient like sometimes. It's like every third Wednesday of the month I'm usually patient. But
I'm never patient.
yeah. Yeah, it's trucking along nicely though. And you're looking pretty good.
Is it?
Should we have a look-see? Oh. Got a little bit of oil left in there.
It takes a while, but yeah. So, well, one other thing that we can do is do what I do all the time: just put it in the counter and then do a little hand mixing.
Yeah.
The bad thing about these mixers is that they are not as efficient as your hand or industrial size mixers because they have different. So if it takes a while and you think you spend too much time doing that, then put it on the counter and just knead it in by yourself.
Yeah.
And then in a way that's good because it can tell you what's the consistency of my dough and then fix it.
Totally. Yeah, like that dough is looking so beautiful and stretchy. Like it looks awesome.
It should be soft and stretchy. You want to make sure that it's. And when you're feeling it, you want to feel the dough, that you don't have clumps or something.
Yeah.
So, and in many ways, it's faster than the machine. I always find that hand mixing is faster than these smaller machines because they're not efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just too efficient.
I wish I was more efficient. Okay, well, let's say we're done, but let me show you what the finished dough should feel like.
Yeah.
And I have some sample of that. And that is your dough, pretend that's all mixed up. It should be soft. See the difference, how soft and stretchy it is?
Yeah.
And you can see it's very wiggly jiggly.
Yeah.
So your finished dough should have that consistency.
Right.
And yet I'm, working it, it's not sticky.
Yeah.
To my hand.
Like it feels wet, and you feel it want to hold on, but it still drops off clean. That's awesome.
So when your dough is like that, it's time to stop and then just let it cover.
And just let it proof.
Let it proof up. Let it rise until it's time to do.
Awesome.
So when it's time, it should you can press it and it should stay down.
Yeah.
And it won't fight back.
That's awesome. All right, so I think we should go have a cup of coffee, and I think we'll start kneading.
You said you were making a cappuccino.
I think so, yeah.
Well,
I'm gonna ask somebody to make it or something.
No, you go to it.
Yeah. All right, so you guys stay tuned. We'll be right back, and we'll show you guys how to shape some focaccia and more shenanigans. So you guys stay tuned.
Providing opportunities to underserved neighborhoods is how Metropolitan Community College empowers lives. We're transforming learning in Fremont, at MCC North Express in the Highlander neighborhood, and MCC South Express on 24th Street. We provide access to technology at MCC's Do Space at 72nd and Dodge. And we're reviving lost arts in downtown Omaha's Makerhood District. MCC empowers our community.
Metropolitan Community College.
Hi, then we're back here at the Institute of Culinary Arts, where Janet is focacciaing it up today.
Focacciaing it up.
Oh, focaccia! All right, so this is our wonderful little dough. Oh, I'm turning on the stove over here. So this is our wonderful dough. So this one been proofing for a little bit.
Yeah, we made the dough, right, and then we proof it.
Yeah.
So now look at the dough. It's very gassy, bouncy.
It's like a lot
It's like
of little bubbles
jiggly
going on.
wiggly
Like, it looks
jello
fun, doesn't it?
consistency.
Kind of looks more like my belly on a Sunday. I think.
We don't need to know that.
Like-
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so next thing we want to do is take it out. So you lightly flour it, and then as much as possible, don't pull it out. Just
You would
know.
try not to deflate it and just kind of
Well,
keep the.
you don't want to, but you don't want to tear the gluten either. So
Yeah,
look at how gassy it is.
that's beautiful.
So what you want to do now is slightly, flatten it out. So we're gonna do our focaccia. Usually focaccia is baked in a pan,
Yeah.
sheet pan, and then you just cut pieces out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna do one in a half sheet pan, and then at home I often like to do them in rounds, and it's also a better sell. So if you do rounds, you can sell a
Totally.
whole round versus people
Yeah.
may not want a whole half sheet.
Totally.
So based on past experience, I say this is an 8-inch round, so that takes about a pound of dough.
Okay.
But we're just gonna pretend we know what we're doing, and then just
That's what we always do,
portion.
isn't it?
So yeah, so we're gonna portion a portion of that for this round, and then the rest we're gonna put in there.
Awesome.
So focaccia usually is baked in a slightly, sometimes slight, but oftentimes heavily oiled.
Yeah, I'm
pan.
usually the heavier part of that.
So what do I do? This is when, again, you want to use good oil.
Yeah.
So,
So same mold that you added to the
right.
to the dough itself.
So we're going to put some oil in both pans.
That is a chunk of oil,
Yes,
isn't it?
that's a chunk.
Yeah.
And then, you can then also, if you like, because this is a lot of dough, so maybe put some seasoning on your
Oh, in the bottom of the
on
pan?
the bottom.
All right.
Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the dough into the pan and then flip it over, because you want your dough to be greased on both sides. Right, that's your job.
Oh, I got the big one. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for this, Jana.
So what you want to do is, once you don't work too much, just lay it in and then use your fingertips to
Yeah.
dimple, just like making pizza. Stretch it out. Okay.
This is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that beautiful bubble.
So it may take a little while for that dough to stretch to itself. So
Yeah,
if
you
you
see it like kind of pulling
right.
together.
So if it's too elastic or it fights you, then just put it aside, let it rest for 10-15 minutes, and then come back and do it again.
Because what would happen if you tried to use like a rolling pin or something like that? Like,
You do what we call tighten the dough, make it even more elastic, so it
Okay.
just keeps snapping back on you.
okay.
So whereas with this is more gentle, so like just come on, you can do it.
Yeah.
Usually that's what I did. So obviously you can see when it's small, I can get to what I want a little
Yeah.
faster. Whereas with you, like this is a case where you may have to let it rest
Yeah.
and then do it again. And you don't have to cover it, mainly because now you have
As lo-
oil covering your dough.
And
so
as
you-
long as it's somewhat even thickness, it doesn't even have to fill the
Right,
entire
yeah.
pan. Yeah. Like it can just be a very like loosely shaped.
loosely shaped.
This is so like
Isn't
Therapeutic?
feel the dough? Isn't it very soft?
Ah.
It's not like regular bread dough.
it feels like I'm like galloping on a sandy beach.
And it stays down. So it's important to make sure your dough is relaxed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to have that dimple. So one of the characteristics of focaccia is, right, when you look at it, the dough is always, the finished product is always have these little dimples.
Yes.
That better to catch the oil and all the juices and
Okay.
your dips, if you want, so that they become little, holes for catching.
Yeah, because you see, like the oil is really just pulling in those little dimples very nicely.
So, once you have that, you're gonna let it proof up again.
Yeah.
I often, of course, we talk about focaccia normally have some kind of topping on it.
Yeah.
So what I do is when you have it stretched out to the size that you want, then you can make some filling
Yeah.
for it. Topping, for example.
Yeah.
You can make the topping, way ahead of time and just sprinkle.
And just sprinkle dinkle it on there.
So you just put them on top and let it rise.
Yeah.
And then when you finish rising, then you do something to those topping before you bake.
What do you do?
Squeeze them down
More
and dimple
dimpling.
them in.
Nice.
More, yeah.
So what would happen if you didn't like push the fillings in? Like if you just sprinkle on top?
Good question. So if you don't dimple it in, you don't what I call tack them down to the
Okay.
dough. What it is, your dough will rise and all that filling will just
They just sit on top and
Right.
just dry out and get funky. All right.
or fall off.
Oh, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Like I want it to be stuck in the bread.
Yeah. So I have some filling. The kind of filling depends on you.
Yeah.
Some should be pre-cooked.
Yeah.
Others should not be pre-cooked.
Yeah.
Herbs are horrible to put on top, fresh herb, because
They'll
this
just
goes
burn
into the
and-
oven. It's
yeah.
just like little chopped bits that you don't want.
Yeah.
So if you want, fresh herbs, it's best to bake it until it's 90%, then take it out and sprinkle it on top
Yeah.
to keep it
Like it's dainty.
fresh.
Yeah.
Same thing with cheese.
Yeah. So could you add like any like fresh vegetables to it? Like could you add like tomatoes and stuff like that? Like
I would say yes, you can, but make sure a good thing is tomato. It's very juicy.
yeah.
So you may not want to do
because it'll
fresh.
just soak into the
Right,
dough
right.
and make it cook unevenly.
Right. So
and
you
get
may
funky.
want to,
use like a sun-dried
roast
tomato
it
or
first,
something.
or
Yeah.
instead of beefsteak tomato, for example, maybe you want to do Roma tomato.
Or just use like tomato concasse
Uh-huh.
or something where you don't get like too much of the pulp out of it. All right.
Those are trial and error. So
Yeah.
I mean, if
like,
you
like you see olives very often, like it's a very common thing on there.
cheese, olive,
Yeah,
herbs.
cheese is delicious on there. But like if you wanted to, like you can just, like I've seen like salami on there, like sliced up salami. Like it's not very traditional, but like it's very delicious. So like,
Yeah, you can do that, but
Yeah.
do it near the end of your bake so
Totally.
it doesn't
Yeah,
get
yeah,
all
yeah.
crisp up.
yeah, delicious. Okay, so how long do these ones need to proof before they go in the oven again?
Well, same thing. You want to proof it until it's soft and squishy.
Okay.
It's almost like a marshmallowy consistency.
I love marshmallows.
And then once it's done, then you want to do what we call, use your finger again to tack down your topping.
Yeah. So at this stage, could you like put them in the fridge and kind of slow it down, or is it best going in the oven as soon
I
as they're
say
done
with
proofing?
this, now when you make the dough, you can put it in the fridge to
Yeah.
wait for another time. With this, now that you're here, it doesn't take long to get it proof up.
Yeah.
I would say if you're at this point, it's best to just go ahead and bake it off.
Yeah.
Baking these takes no time because they are thin
Yeah.
and they are very airy, so it's easy to
Yeah.
finish baking off.
So what temperature do you usually bake them at?
It depends on the thickness. If your
Okay.
your focaccia is thin, I would say bake them at about 420
So rather high temperature.
high temperature.
Okay.
If you have more of these taller ones, you want to bake it at a lower temperature because
Okay.
you want to make sure the inside is baked and the
Yeah.
outside is not burnt.
But
to
you
a
still
crisp.
want to get like a little caramelization
Right.
on it for texture and flavor and okay.
Crunch is a good thing to have.
Crunchy. It's such a wonderful thing. It's so underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So let's stand here and watch the bubbles rise because like you see it like it's almost like this living little jellyfish on this plate. So
Let's
it's-
not. Let's have another cup of coffee. How about that?
yeah, we might do that. We can do that. We can have another cup of coffee while watching the bubbles grow.
Yeah, you'll wait until it's done. We can gobble it up, right?
That's a good plan. All
Okay.
right, so we'll be right back. You guys stay tuned, and we want to show you guys how we eat focaccia.
How we eat.
You guys are in for a treat. You guys get to see us eat or something.
Yeah.
So you guys stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Lifelong learning is not always about a diploma. That's why Metropolitan Community College offers non-credit career and continuing education classes for all ages. Whether you want to explore career options, enhance your job skills, or just enrich your life with a new hobby, MCC offers hundreds of classes throughout the community and online, each taught by highly qualified instructors. MCC empowers our community
Metropolitan Community College.
All right, then we're back here again at Foccacia land.
Foccacia, yes.
So these puppies are looking like amazing.
Is it?
Yeah,
Great.
looks awesome.
Well, we're ready to, so it's been proofed, baked. So I just want to explain a little bit about, see how these fillings are sort of staying down?
Yeah.
And remember last time we talked was that you don't want it to rot. So
Yeah.
to do that, what you want to do is when it's proof up, you put filling in there, and then you use your fingertip
And
to
just-
push down and
Yeah.
away from you to sort of tack it down.
Because here you got slices of potato. So that's just like pushed into kind of the walls
push
of the
into
divots.
the dough. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then it's baked. So in this, you see that there's also some cheese. It's hard to
Yeah.
tell, I know. So I don't put the cheese in the beginning, but
Just towards the end.
toward the end because you don't want the cheese to burn to a crisp.
Yeah. You
so-
really see like some nice bubbling here too. Like where you just like gassed up like during cooking. Like that's.
Yeah, I
like,
try not to cut in, but we can check.
like
And over
absolutely
here, you
beautiful.
can, we do a smaller portion. So I just gave people options. Like here's cheese alone, and this is just salt and pepper. So you
Yeah.
can do. I saw on Instagram somewhere where you can portion of the, cut out into 9 quadrants, and each one has a different. I said that's a little excessive, but you want to try take that out and
Yeah,
see?
we might as well. Like.
So remember
It's
we said it's
beautiful.
a soft dough. So you want to bake it so that bottom is brown, nice brown. and
Because
then-
that oil in the pan probably helps out with that too.
Right. So it sort of give you a little Christmas, but it's been sitting.
But like that's beautiful, like little dimpling going on, like on both sides. Like it's absolutely beautiful, and like you feel it's greasy, or like it's oily but not greasy.
Right.
That's
But
awesome.
that's acceptable.
Oh yeah, no, this is great.
And when it's thinner, it's a little more crispy.
So when this comes out of the oven, like you want to let it rest a little bit, right?
Oh,
before
yes.
you cut into.
You always want to rest.
Because like what would happen if you cut into it straight away? Like
Well, when it's really, really hot, when it just comes out of the oven,
yeah,
there's a lot of moisture on the inside that has to come out. So
Yeah.
if you don't wait, when you cut it, it'll be all gummy.
because it'll come out too fast
Right.
and all in kind of one direction.
So let's see.
I'm so
let's
curious.
See, test of our skill. Review, okay.
There's a little
A
bubbling.
little bubbling, yeah.
It looks so happy, but like see up here, like that's beautiful. That looks awesome. Like that looks just gorgeous.
So depends on,
Smell that.
oh wow, it's nutty.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
But like that oil just smells absolutely beautiful.
So at home, for instance, you can cut chunks of it, or
Yeah.
in a restaurant when you serve, you can do thinner slices.
I'm a big fan too.
Oh,
Like you can
opening up.
just cut them like that, and you just make like a ginormous happy summer sandwich.
Sandwiches, yeah. This could be a muffalata Italian style.
I'll hook you up. And I know.
Or you know what I do sometimes is slice it horizontally like this, open it, and make
Oh,
it a
yeah.
focaccia pizza.
Ooh. We need to make all these things happen. All right. This is awesome.
I'll give you a schedule.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much for showing me the world of focaccia. Like, I feel enlightened and ready to eat like a pile of bread. I'm like super stoked.
Oh, there's plenty.
Yeah. Be sure to check out our website for recipes and all that kind of fun stuff. Thank you, Janet, for schooling me once again.
Thank you for a good time.
Always, always. Thank you guys, and be sure to keep an eye out for future episodes and more shenanigans from Janet here.
You know we can always have shenanigans.
Always shenanigans. Thank you guys so much, and have a good day.